Hello ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here with a rant, because it's a day that ends in Y, so I have to talk about this. It's 2017 and there's yet another possible Sega coming back to the gaming industry, console business. Sega's Jesus! Why do we keep doing this? Why do people keep doing this? So the new console that they're talking about, that it's not even vaporware at the moment, it's a hope to be vaporware, is the Sega Spartan. And this one at least has reached over 1,000 signatures on an online petition. This one's at 33,000 at the time that I'm recording this. And, you know, that's amazing. That's 33,000 people. You know, that's a lot, right? I don't know. It seems like petitions don't really seem to matter on the internet, but yet people keep doing it because they think maybe it's actually going to accomplish them. It doesn't accomplish this. Not in this case. This is not one of those things. It's like 33,000 people are not enough to make a company be like, yeah, there's totally profit here. There's not. There's not. And considering some of these could be spoofed, it could be the same person just using multiple email addresses. I've got 3 email addresses myself. I could easily sign this 3 times. That does not mean there are 3 people who want this. And companies know this. Some of the other petitions for Sega consoles, you could tell it's the same person doing multiple signatures. Like, there's a skit from Family Guy where they're at the Teen Choice Awards, and it's like, I recognize fewer and fewer people, and it's like the same person, but with like different names. So it's like Chad Zachwick, Zach Chadwick, C Zachary Chad. Like, that is the joke, and that's what some of these petitions end up turning into. It's the same person with a slightly different name. It's the same person. And most companies know this. So let's ignore the number of signatures on the petition, because it could get to 1 million, and even still there's going to be a marked concern of, is this actually legitimate? Is this smart business to actually look into? And probably not, because it takes 2 seconds to sign a petition online. However, it takes a couple $100s to actually buy the product these people are saying. I can take 2 seconds to sign a petition. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to spend a couple $100s once the product is actually made. So that the signature petition doesn't translate to a sale. So petitions, kind of pointless. Let's jump into the next statement of, if this were crowdfunded, then you're kind of getting the money up front. But how many people are going to crowdfund a console? Especially consoles that people are sitting here saying are going to be like this. That's going to be an expensive crowdfunding goal. Like, we're seeing like 2 mil for a game. I really don't think we're going to get, like, we'd need like Star Citizen levels of funding. And I really don't think anyone's going to get that for a console, specifically Sega. Because I've said this before, and I will say it again, Sega has been out of the console market. At this point, I'd have to double check. The last time I did a video like this, they were almost out of the console market for as long as they were in the console industry for their entire lifespan, ranging from the Master System to the Dreamcast. And that was at least a year ago, so they're probably at a 50-50 point of they've been out of the game for as long as they did every console lifespan that they ever had. So yeah, and then what all of these petitions seem to be basically the same thing. It's, we want Sega to come back with a new console. We want them to be able to have third-party support, and they get all the AAA titles, and then they'd have, you know, backwards compatibility with all of their stuff. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, how? What are you gonna do? Emulation, for the most part, for most of Sega's consoles, are all right. Like, there's a decent Dreamcast emulator out there. There's fantastic Genesis emulators, Master System, Game Gear, etc. The Saturn's a little iffy because, you know, that was a nightmare of a console. It was a Frankenstein of a creature. And then, you know, you get something that's powerful enough to actually run it with no problems. See, that's the thing. I've talked about this before. It's what level of a product are you willing to pay for? Now, Sega Forever came out, and there were issues. You had a free version that you could pay money to remove the ads, but it's like paying money to remove the ads, but still getting kind of a janky product. That doesn't sit well with a lot of people. So a lot of people are just going to take the free version, deal with the ads, and realize that there's graphical, sound, or other sort of optimization issues. So it boils down to how much are you willing to spend on a product, knowing that there could be issues, knowing that it's not going to be a one-to-one experience for the original console. So it's like, if I'm going to play Panzer Dragoon Saga, am I going to want to play it as perfectly as possible, or am I willing to sacrifice some of what I would pay for it to get a slightly glitchier version? Like, am I going to miss some of the sound effects? Am I going to miss, some of the graphical issues? Am I going to be okay with, maybe they don't have the ability to put the voice acting in? Who knows? There could be tons of issues. It boils down to how much would you be willing to sacrifice versus how much are they actually going to charge to still be able to make a profit. So the whole Sega ecosystem of we want to have all this backwards compatibility, everything, it's not going to happen. It's not. And even still, you'll get the first-party Sega games. I really don't see Sega being, we're going to license all the third-party Genesis games. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get a lot of these games. You're not going to get a lot of the Konami games. You're not going to get a lot of Capcom games. Just not. Because they won't be exclusive to this console. They'll be, if Capcom, Konami, whoever wants to be like, yeah, we're going to put these out, we're going to put them all on whatever platform they can fit on. And if you've got a platform like the Spartan or whatever other Sega console, you're either going to have to make it very similar to all the other platforms out there, like the Xbox and the PS4, or you're going to have to make it very unique, like the Switch, and run the risk of not being able to get everything. And so you've got this interesting catch-22 of, do you want it to have everything? How similar is it going to be to everything else? And then you run into the reason of why buy another console if so many other people have a PS4 or an Xbox One that have all of the things that you are offering, and Sega could just as easily put their products on that instead, versus something completely unique. And if it's very unique, it has to have a draw. It has to have some reason to get it over something else. And you can say, oh, it has graphics. Graphics is not a draw. If you're playing games for graphics, consoles are not where you're looking. They're not. The price point per graphical capability is far better on PC. And that's just how technology's been working the last couple of years. If you're aiming for graphics, you're not really looking as a PC gamer, or you're not looking as a console gamer. You're looking toward PC. So it's got to have another gimmick. So you could do like a Switch version, like Nintendo or Sega could do like they did this with the Nomad. Why not do that? But you already have the Switch that's already having an identity crisis of sorts. People are still harping on it that it doesn't know what it wants to be, and that it's not getting these AAA games, and this, that, and the other. So it's like, it has an uphill battle, even though it's doing really well. Sega jumping in right now with something like that, people would just be like, most gamers wouldn't even know what Sega was. I've met gamers who have no idea that Sega made consoles. They had no idea that Sonic was a rival to Mario, and they're like, why? Like, they've always been in the Olympic Games together. I know people who have that mind because they never knew. They're younger than I am, and they didn't grow up the Sega console. And then the last thing that I have to point out goes back to the either making it the same or making it different. And I've asked this many times before, why having a dedicated console? Why do people feel that Sega making their own hardware again means they will instantly revive all of these IPs that they have ignored for the better part of 2 decades? What about having their own dedicated hardware means they're instantly going to... I've never understood this argument. If Sega makes a new console, they'll bring back Panzer Dragoon Saga. No, they won't. Team Andromeda's gone. Like, that's been disbanded. The people who still work at Sega from Team Andromeda have moved to other departments. Most of the people from Team Andromeda have left. Like, they can bring back they can redo Panzer Dragoon Saga with a new development team, but it's not going to be the same thing. And what about having dedicated hardware, especially if it's going to be very similar to the PS4 and the Xbox One? What purpose does it serve to have a dedicated console when they could just as easily make this game and make it available on multiple platforms? Like, that's one thing I've never understood about this. Well, if they have their own dedicated hardware, then they know the hardware inside and out, and therefore they can take better advantage of it, like Nintendo. The problem is when Nintendo uses their own specific hardware, they're the only ones doing anything for it. I mean, look at the Wii U. It was not an easy system to port for, so they relied on unique games. Didn't exactly do well. And if it's something that you can port for, then it's going to be on everything. There's no reason to not have it on something else. I mean, in Sega's case, oh yeah, we'll do it on this and we'll just only do it on our console. But then you run into the thing of how many console units will Sega have to sell to meet the potential install base of what they could already release for? Because right now, as a third-party developer, they release games on PC, Xbox, PS4, Switch, and mobile. Cutting out the mobile, we'll cut that out right off. 4 platforms that have roughly comparable specs. We'll say the PC is the highest end, Switch is the lowest end. So it's like if they can get it working on the Switch, they can probably get it working and everything else. How many of each of those are available in terms of sales? Cutting out PCs, because we'll just assume everyone has a PC, but not everyone's a PC gamer. So it's kind of a hard metric to go for. So we'll just use the 3 consoles. How many millions of units have been sold between the PS4, all of the Xbox line, and the Switch as of right now? How many? I have to look those numbers up, but I would be willing to bet it's more than what Sega would be able to sell on their own. So, from a business standpoint, you are a third-party publisher and developer. You don't have to worry about your own thing. You can just put things out wherever you want. You have access to a huge potential install base. Huge potential install base that has actually been doing rather well for your company for the last couple of years, especially now that you've kind of taken an uptick on actually listening to what your fans want. So you've got huge install base between 4 platforms. 4 easy to port platforms. How many dedicated units would you have to sell in order to make up the sales that you would lose going to a third-party developer, or going from third-party to first-party again? Say a couple million? Like, I have behind me the collector's edition of Sonic Mania, probably one of the most successful Sonic games in the last couple of years. Probably one of the most successful Sega games in the last couple of years. And it is available on how many platforms? And how well did it sell? Would it have sold so well if it were only on one platform? No, that's the point. Like, if it had only come out on PS4, it would have a fraction of the sales that it has. That's just the math of it. Like, that's why Sega's actually doing well as a third-party developer. So I don't understand this constant yearly need of, hey, Sega needs to come back to the market and make a console and it'd be the second coming of Christ. It's not going to be. Please stop. It's not going to be. If you really want to support Sega, and if you really want to see the Sega of yesteryear kind of come back and bring out all of the... Because, let's face it, I was a hardcore Sega fan. I had the Genesis, the Game Gear, I had the Saturn, the Dreamcast. I picked a Saturn over a PS1. I picked Panzer Dragoon Saga over Final Fantasy VII. That is the level of Sega fan that I am. But the console itself, the only reason why I picked the console is because that was where I could get the games. The console does not matter these days. The platform has very little impact because the PC, the PS4, and the Xbox are all so very similar. It boils down to what extra features do you want? Like that's really it. Or if there's enough first-party support from one of those platforms, that's what you're aiming for. Like, but if you're going like, if it's available on all three platforms, I'm rambling on that, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to get. It's like, what's the point if they're all so similar? If you're gonna make a similar one, anyway. Yeah, I was a hardcore Sega fan. The only reason why I picked up these games is because, or those consoles, is because that's where the games were. Now that Sega's third party, they could put these games out on all these platforms. They just need the incentive to. They need to feel like the sales would be there. Like, they're not going to bring back Panzer Dragoon Saga just because they have a dedicated console. Because it's the same problem now. Like, how many people know about Panzer Dragoon Saga? How many people would care about Panzer Dragoon Saga? Very little. And do you know why? Because they tried to do a Panzer Dragoon style game for the Xbox. One of the creators of Panzer Dragoon Saga, it was Crimson Dragon, I believe was the title of it, and it bombed horribly. It just was terrible. And then you have games that like could look like Scalebound, that got canceled. It's like, it doesn't matter having a unique platform. It really doesn't. They need to see that the franchise, the specific title itself, would sell. Having a platform behind it doesn't really factor into it, other than you're already kind of neutering your own sales, because that platform would have to sell enough to reach the potential install base for all of the other platforms that they're currently developing for. And that's just it. And I know other companies are coming back. It's like Atari's doing their console, but let's face it, who cares? Who really cares? It's not the same Atari. They're probably not going to be able to get a lot of the licensed games. It's going to be a wood grain console that might have current gen support. There's still a lot of, we don't know what this is actually going to do. We don't know if it's going to become anything other than vaporware. And there have been many, many consoles that have just turned out to be vaporware. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm tired of having to talk about this every year. Every year. I really don't see Sega coming back to consoles. I don't see why it would be a thing. I don't understand why people would want it to be a thing. Because it doesn't seem like it's a benefit to them. It seems like it's a pipe dream for a bunch of fans my age wishing and hope, like, this, I'm not gonna lie, getting a little bit older, I've gotten a little bit more jaded about gaming. It's not as magical as it used to be. But that doesn't mean Sega coming back with a new console is instantly going to bring back that nostalgic feeling. Like, there's a lot of rose-tinted glasses going on with that. Like, gaming was probably just as crappy back then as it is today. I was just too young to really pay attention and notice it. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But like I said, I really don't see Sega coming back, making a new console. It doesn't seem like it would make sense for anyone involved. They're doing well as a third-party developer. They have a huge potential install base for titles. Like, just stick with that. If you want to see a specific game, reach out to Sega and be like, hey, instead of every year petitioning to bring back a console, why don't you contact one of the indie developers that's been doing so well for games? You know what? I would rather like to see Airship Syndicate and THQ Nordic just came out with Battle Chasers, a game that I have been over the moon for. They just finished Battle Chasers. They're still working on, some patches and some updates and getting a Switch version out. You know what? They had a perfect throwback to like late 90s era JRPGs. Like turn-based, a lot of people hate it because of the slow turn-based combat, but I love it. How about we pitch to them like, hey, how about you guys do another crowdfunding project to see if you could work with Sega, if they could, have you license a Panzer Dragoon Saga game. Do that. See if they could do another Shining game. Christ, I'd drop a couple $100 on that for a Kickstarter. Like, Sega's not doing anything with the IPs at the moment. See if someone else will. And that's one of the things that Sega said when they bought Atlas, is that Atlas will still be able to be autonomous, and they have access to Sega's IPs. I've been chomping at the bit hoping that Atlas is going to be like, yeah, we're going to do, a new Dragon Force game. That would just blow my mind. I mean, they're busy working on, all of the Shin Megami games and things as such, so it's like they have their plate full. But maybe another one of these, instead of Petition to be like, hey, Sega, keep coming back with a new console. We want you to be the Jesus of gaming. Just make them outsource the Jesus of gaming to other developers. Be like, hey, we really love this IP. You haven't done anything with it in a decade. Do you think, another developer could do well with it? Maybe NIS, Xseed, who knows? Like, there's so much possibility. Or, you could do a Mario and Rabbids type thing. Like, as much as I really don't like EA and Ubisoft most of the time, see if they want to do some sort of weird collaboration. Who knows? It could be fantastic. But, like, this constant pipe dream of Sega making a new console, I really want to know why a new console would make everything magically better versus just trying to get them to make the games that people want them to make anyway. Because I see that just adding an extra expensive and complicated step. Being like, if Sega makes this console, then we'll get Streets of Rage 4. Why can't they just do Streets of Rage 4 and then put it out on all the platforms that they already have? Why do they have to spend the money to make their own console and hope that they sell enough for that console to make it worthwhile? And then are they only going to put Streets of Rage 4 on their new console? And if so, like, is that going to be financially viable for them? Versus putting it out on every console, including theirs? Because, like, if they're going to still develop for everything, then having their own dedicated hardware seems superfluous. If they're going to make only for their console, then they're really going to be shooting themselves foot in their sales for the first couple of years until they can hit the install base and the numbers that they were hitting being a multi-platform developer. So I don't see it. I don't understand. But that's just me, and I'm jaded. And there's probably going to be a ton of people sitting here saying that I'm a Sega hater for it. I'm just gonna ignore those because it's, yeah. But can we please stop every year with this petition idea to get Sega to come back? I mean, reach out to other developers, reach out to Sega and be like, hey, this company did a great game. Maybe you should partner with them and see if you could revive an IP or something. Like, because it's going to be whatever takes the financial burden off them. Like, if it's whatever's going to maximize their level of profit is what they're going to aim for. Because they're a company, they're a business, that's what they do. So, aim for that. I mean, they don't even do their own flashback consoles. Like, Nintendo has done the NES Classic and the SNES Classic themselves. Sega can't even bother to do that. They license it out to a third party. They license it out to AtGames that has never done a good quality product. There's always either some sort of control issue, some sort of graphical issue, or the audio is just destroyed. Like, look up any of the AtGames Sega flashback consoles, and you will see no one likes those products. The only reason why they sell is because they are dirt cheap. And it's you get what you pay for. So, like, Sega can't even be bothered to make their own Genesis Classic, or Dreamcast Classic, or, heaven forbid, Saturn Classic. That I might actually buy from them. If Sega themselves did a Saturn Classic, I might actually buy it. But they can't be bothered to do it themselves, because that's still money and effort into creating this physical product, manufacturing this product, and then hoping it sells enough to make a profit. They don't want to break even. They want to make a profit, and it has to be enough of a viable profit to turn around and show their shareholders that this was a viable product that made your stock prices go up. And that's the end of the day. Like, that's what it boils down to. So, yeah. I'm gonna go because I'm kind of done rambling about this. I don't even know how to end this one. I really don't, because I feel like I've done this like a dozen times now, and it kind of turns into the same thing of a bunch of people agreeing, yeah, why does Sega bother? And then a couple of people like, you're just a Sega hater, and I don't care to hear that anymore, because if you look at the games that I've Let's Played, if you look at the games that I own, that's not exactly accurate. So, I'm just not going to even entertain a lot of those comments, because it's yeah. Like, if someone can legitimately point out to me how it would be a good financial decision for them to spend the money to make a console to compete with the multiple platforms that are out there versus just still developing for the multiple platforms that are out there, if you can, like, through examples, show me where business decisions like this have paid off for a company in the past, I would love to see it. I really would, because I can't piece it together. And people I've talked to who know way more about business than I do, they're like, yeah, no, you're pretty close on the mark. Like, it's not financially viable for them. It's not going to be as profitable for them as people seem to think it will be, because reasons. So, like, I would love to see something to show that this is the case, but I can't see anything. I just see this as fans with pipe dreams shouting into the wind. Like, and every year it's just enough to get more traction. So, like, yeah, no. Anyway, I'm gonna go, because I've ranted for a while. So I will see you in future rants. Hopefully I can be done with these Sega console rants, because, yeah. Till then, later everyone.